Welcome, lovely students, to another wonderful class. In today's lesson, I will be teaching cropping systems. The way a farmland is cropped varies from one farmer to another. That is, the way farmers practice their crop cultivation varies from one farmer to another. The system that will be adopted may depend on some factors, such as the availability of land, the type of agriculture that is practiced by the farmer, that is, whether subsistence farm or commercial farm. The need of the farmer as well also determine the type of cropping system that will be adopted by that farmer. Those patterns, those sequences that the crops are cultivated, the ways, the styles adopted by these farmers, they are known as cropping system. So cropping systems therefore refers to the cropping sequence, and the management techniques that are adopted by farmers in crops cultivation. There are several types of cropping systems, but the common ones that are practiced in Nigeria are monocropping, miscropping, continuous cropping, and crop rotation. And these four are the ones we're discussing in the scope of this lesson. So enjoy. The first one, monocropping. Monocropping is the growing of only one type of crop, such as maize, on a piece of land. It could be for a season or for several years, as in plantation farming. This system is also known as sole cropping. It involves planting only one type of crop in a farmland, and then it grows till maturity, till it is harvested, and then it can be grown again. That is, the farmland can be put under cultivation again. The principle is only one type of crop is cultivated at a time. What are the advantages of this system? The advantages of this system includes the following. It makes it possible for the use of machine in the farm. Machines that are used to carry out agricultural purposes can easily be used. For instance, harvesting. When harvesting, and if there is only one type of crop present in the farm, there is no fear of destroying the other crop. So harvesting can easily be carried out. Also, the control of weed is easy because only one type of crop is grown. Herbicide can easily be used to control weeds, as there are some herbicides that are selective for some particular crops. For instance, if maize is grown, you use an herbicide that is selective for maize to control weeds in a maize farm, and as such, there is no fear that the herbicide might destroy another crop. It leads to higher productivity per hectare. There tends to be a good yield. Also, it leads to specialization among farmers. Farmers tend to become very good at what they do. What are the disadvantages of this system? It is risky because only one crop is planted by the farmer, and if that crop fails, the farmer resorts to a total loss. That is, the whole farm resorts to a total loss. And the system also encourages a rapid spread of pests and diseases because only one type of crop is grown year in, year out. There tend to be perpetuation of pests and diseases in the farmland. Labor as well may not be efficiently utilized in the farmland, and it does not afford the farmer a variety of crops. That is, when he grows maize, it is only maize he will harvest. Miscropping. Miscropping, another form of cropping system, is also known as multiple cropping. And this system involves the planting of more than one type of crop in the same farmland. It is the direct opposite of monocropping. Miscropping can take any of these two forms, interplanting and intercropping. The term interplanting means the growing of two crops together on a piece of land, and the crop that was planted first will also be harvested first. while the other one that is planted last remain on the plot to be harvested later. For instance, maize that is grown in the farm alongside cassava. Maize is planted first, cassava is planted later, and maize is harvested first. In this case, maize is said to be interplanted with cassava. Intercropping. Intercropping is when two crops are grown together on the same farmland and the one that is planted last is harvested first. Yes, the direct opposite of interplanting. In intercropping, the one planted last is harvested first. So that crop that is planted last is said to be intercropped with the first crop. What are the advantages of this system? It affords the farmer a variety of crops because many crops are grown in the land, and as such, the farmer harvests a lot of crop products. It serves as insurance against the failure of one type of crop. If one crop fails, maybe due to pest and disease attack, or due to abnormal agricultural conditions for that year, the farmer can be compensated with the remaining crop. It minimizes the spread of pests and diseases as there are so many crops in the farm. It enables the crop to make efficient use of the nutrients, and finally, it ensures efficient utilization of labor throughout the year. Labor is not used to weed different portions of land. The portion of land that contains both crops will be weeded by one labor, and it serves two purposes. Disadvantages of miscropping. One disadvantage about this system of cropping is that it does not encourage the use of machines on the farm. It discourages mechanization. It may lead to a rapid exhaustion of soil nutrients. As there are so many crops on the farmland, so there is rapid exhaustion of soil nutrients. Also, it is labor intensive, and pest and disease agents may persist on the farm for a very long time. Continuous cropping. Continuous cropping is a system of cropping that involves putting a farmland under cultivation continuously, that is, year in, year out. A farmland is grown with crops every year, and continuous cropping can take any of these two forms. There is annual cropping and there is permanent cropping. In annual cropping, annual crops are usually planted and they are replaced after harvesting. This means you grow maize, for instance, this year for this growing season in the year 2022, and comes 2023, you grow another type of crop again that will be harvested that same year. The term annual crops means those crops that complete their life cycle within a year. Permanent cropping. Permanent cropping involves planting and maintaining crops. Usually, the permanent crops they grow continuously on the farmland, especially in plantations. In this case, they will be maintained on regular basis. What are the advantages of continuous cropping? The first is it reduces the cost of land preparation after the initial clearing and tilling. When you want to plant the second year, you don't need to carry out clearing, stumping of the soil, tedious land preparation. No. Also, it enables the farmer to construct permanent structures such as storage structures. This is particularly useful in permanent cropping, where a farmer have cocoa production, massive cocoa production. You can build permanent structures, houses in your farm because you know you are going to be there for years and years. It can be practiced where land is scarce. But this system of cropping is not without disadvantages. The disadvantages of continuous cropping, and the first is the fertility of the soil is easily exhausted. Don't forget, you grow crops in this farmland year in, year out, continuously. So, it leads to rapid exhaustion of soil nutrients. Secondly, it leads to destruction of the soil structure, especially in commercial agriculture, where machines will be used to cultivate the land year in, year out. It leads to compression. It leads to continuous tilling of the soil that results to a destruction of the structure of the soil. It encourages soil erosion. The crop is never covered properly with bushes and the likes because it is cropped continuously. So there tends to be soil erosion in such farmland, and the yield is normally reduced with increasing years of cropping. As time goes on, there will be need to be fertilizing, application of fertilizer to supplement the natural fertility. Also, it requires a high amount of money to keep the land fertile and productive. Like I said, fertilizer application will be necessary. So, more production, more cost of production will be incurred. And the last one we'll be discussing is crop rotation. Crop rotation is a system of cropping that involves planting of different types of crops in different plots on a farmland during one season, and at the beginning of the next season, the crops are interchanged from their respective plots while following a definite order or sequence. Crop rotation is not the same as land rotation, as land rotation is a system of farming. Crop rotation is a cropping system. The land will be divided into portions, and crops will be grown in all of them, but different crops, and they will be rotated as time goes on. This system of farming, it combines miscropping with continuous cropping, and it is mainly practiced by institutions of learning like tertiary institution, University of Agriculture, usually practice crop rotation. However, for this system of farming to be successful, one need to adhere to some principles known as the principles of crop rotation. These rules need to be followed for crop rotation to be successful. And the first one is the same type of crop should not be allowed to follow each other on the same plot. For example, cowpea cannot follow cowpea. This is due to some reason. Also, crops that belong to the same group should not follow each other on the same plot. By the same group, we mean maize cannot follow another cereals such as wheat, such as rice, because they are all cereals. There are diseases that are common to these particular groups. They can be transferred from one to another. So there is need to distance such group of crops from each other. Aside all this, there are others such as the crops with deep-rooted crops with deep roots, the likes of yam, cassava, sugar beet, potato, cocoyam. They should not follow each other as these crops all produce tubers. Crops that consume a lot of nitrogen, such as cereals and the likes, they should not be allowed to follow each other. As a matter of fact, they should be followed by those that add nitrogen to the soil. Also, crops that are likely to be affected by the same diseases or pests should not follow each other on the same plot. This is to discourage the perpetuation of some pests and diseases, a continuous occurrence of such diseases on the farmland. The number of crops that are involved in the rotation will determine the type of crop rotation. Therefore, one can say there is a 4 years crop rotation. One can say there is a 5 years crop rotation. That depends on the number of crops that are involved in the crop rotation. When there are four types of crops involved in crop rotation, one can say it's a 4 years crop rotation. What are the advantages of this system of cropping? The first is it helps to maintain soil fertility because it alternates with other crops with legumes, which helps to replenish soil fertility. 2, it makes efficient use of soil nutrients. And also, the farmer have access to a variety of crops. It minimizes the spread of pests and diseases, and it leads to efficient utilization of labor. And the disadvantages include it is labor intensive, and one needs to be very experienced, knowledgeable about this to be able to use it, as it is not common. Crops yield may decrease with years, except when additional manures and fertilizers are applied on a regular basis. It leads to destruction of soil structure because the farmland is cropped all the time. Okay, lovely students, we have come to the end of this lesson. I trust you really enjoyed this lesson as much as I did. Proceed to the quiz section and answer the questions that follow. Good luck and have a nice day. Bye.